Start the recording. Is it time to go?
Not quite yet.
Not quite.
You'd have 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay. What's the phone say? What's the phone say? No. It says 29.
No. No. Oh, better not say that. Crazy. Whatever.
Good.
Nobody wanted to go on board.
Okay, here we are live in Denver, Colorado. Welcome to the team manager training for our Challenge E, Lose to Win. We are going to begin broadcasting here, and we're going to start telling you what it takes to be a team manager in the Lose to Win category. I'm Jim Circo, and we'll have the other illustrious presenters here today. We'll get some names out later on. And this is a structured challenge, so what we do with this challenge is we determine what does it take to hold the weight up, and how do we maximize our points before the structure breaks apart. Every year it's kind of the same thing. We use the same tester base, but this year it's going to be a little different, so we'll get into the particulars of that. So our next slide here, we're going to say lose to win, and we're going to switch presenters already. I'm kind of like the pace car here at Indy, you know. So, Ron, step up here.
Okay. Hello, everybody. One of the things that we would note is on your webinar box down towards the right, there should be a chat box that you can see. If you have questions about things we say or specific questions from your own earlier reviews of the challenge, please send us in a question. We will respond to you individually, and if we get enough questions about a particular item, we will then respond and bring information out to the audience as a whole. But anyway, take advantage of the chat box. That's part of what we're here for.
Is it okay if I show your face on the screen here? Or you?
Sure, I'm Witness Protection Program, right? Okay. Now everybody can see. Just
one more.
Okay. Hi there. Denver up. It's like the reverse mirror image. I have to be careful here.
Okay.
So on Lose to Win, here in Colorado, there are 3 affiliate challenge masters that are here to help you and your team as you go through. Presentation information is here for Nora Johnson, myself, and Steve Taylor. You can make note of the email addresses now, or we will also be posting the presentation to the Colorado Extreme Creativity website. So if you don't want to copy all this information down, it will be available in hard form. But we're the co-affiliate challenge masters here in Colorado. As we move forward, I think we want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank you for working with your teams. It's a great program. Many of them will learn a lot as they go through the process, but we want to thank you for your time and dedication. It's an overall team effort, and even though we have some limitations on what you can say or do, we realize that this is a challenge for many of you as well. And in that regard, we want you to also remember what's important in this program. It's, yes, scoring well is important, but more importantly, this is another type of education, another type of growth process for you and your team members. So celebrate what they get out of the program, their ways to generate solutions, their way to in conflict resolution, learning to work as part of a group, part of a team. Anymore in today's society, that is so important, and that's part of what they will get out of the program. We also talk about success building success. So even though you want to keep the end in sight, or the major goal of having a structure, having a presentation that meets the requirements that they are proud of, it's the little things along the way. So we say, when they get their structure that will first hold the pressure board, celebrate, get ice cream or pizza or whatever however they want to celebrate. Also, need to remember that your role here is partially as a facilitator. So it's important to say, you know, we believe in you. We recognize what your achievements are. Don't try to step in and solve a problem for them. Help them understand how to explore and engage in the problem solution by themselves. And remember, it's a journey. Have fun along the way. All right, little things, ways to make instant challenge training and examples fun for them. That's a way to make the journey fun. Engage them in picking out different materials, figuring out different solutions. It's not just about the end, it's about how you get there. What's going on here? Jim, I'm locked out here. Hang on just a second. We're going to try to go to another slide. Okay. Okay. No, we skipped one. Oh. All right. The slide deck is not quite the same on paper as it is in what's on the computer, so we're going to go with what's on the computer. All right. All right. So where is this challenge going to take you and your team? First of all, they're going to design, build, and test a structure made of only up to four different types of allowable materials: wood, glue, playing guards, and adhesive tape. Now, as you go through this, the terms that are highlighted in yellow, we'll get around to providing additional definition later on. But basically, this year, the allowable materials are wood, glue, playing cards, and adhesive material. Then in addition, they need to design and build a single removal device to be reused to remove pieces of the structure. So consider the removal device some contraption that they will make that will allow them to reach into the tester and selectively remove one or more parts of the structure. Okay? That's the function of the removal device. There's a lot of information about that. We'll be getting into that a little bit more in detail later. Then they're going to test their structure by showing it can support the weight of the pressure board. Now we will be showing on the video cam here a little bit later what the pressure board looks like, but it's basically a square piece of wood, 1.5 inches thick with a hole through the middle, weighs about 10 pounds. More information to come on that, but that's what we're talking about with the pressure board. Then at the same time, they're going to have to create and tell a story about transformation, creating a prop or set piece that is transformed. So that's another part of their overall solution, and that transformation will take place at the same time or in the same time period as the testing of the pressure board. All right, and then the teams get to integrate up to 2 team choice elements into their presentation. Team choice elements are an option for the team to highlight and demonstrate something that they're particularly proud of, something that they have incorporated into their presentation that doesn't meet any of the other scoring criteria. So that's why we say team choice elements. Each team's plural team choice elements likely to be different from one presentation to the next. We're not looking for standardization there. What we are looking for is teams to bring part of their own unique solution to the presentation. Now their budget for creating their solutions this year is $150, or up to $150, and as we will explain, that is the total amount that they can spend for costed items that they bring to the tournament and use in their presenting their solution. It doesn't cover the cost of the entire materials through the whole program. So materials that are used for building and testing other structures prior to tournament, that doesn't count in the $150. The $150 is the maximum allowable budget for what comes to tournament on tournament day. I'm moving along then, glossary. Here's a couple terms for those of you that may be new to Structure Challenge or to DI that we use an awful lot in our presentation, and realize that maybe we're taking for granted that everybody understands the same things that we do. So here's a couple definitions for you. Structure. a team designed and built creation to meet the criteria outlined in each challenge. Now this part, the team criteria, as we note here, varies from year to year. Okay, that's one of the ways that we keep the challenge fresh, make sure that all teams that come in have an opportunity to explore something new. So the definition of a structure is a item that can hold and support the pressure board. That's the same, but the specific requirements vary from year to year. The structure tester or a tester base. There's a little diagram of what that looks like. This is made of wood, and it helps the testing process during competition or at home. So teams can access, build, have their own structure tester for facilitating their testing at home, and there's some basic specifications here, and later on we will provide a URL address where you can download the instructions for building the structure tester. But basically it's a wooden metal device used to help test the structures. The pressure board, as I indicated, is the flat wooden plate. In the little diagram, that's represented by kind of the square white colored surface on the top of the tester with the gray silver testing pole going through it. That safety pole is the gray pole. It's a 1-inch by 24-inch metal pole, and the pressure board and structure will go around that, and that pole is used to ensure safety, that when the structure collapses, the pressure board doesn't fall off and injure any of the team members, or in other years when there were weights stacked on top, that the weights wouldn't injure anybody. But that's kind of what the safety pole looks like. Excuse me, sorry about that. Testing is the process of subjecting a structure to various forces to the point of failure to score maximum points. Well, this year we've kind of changed that a little bit, in that the forces being subjected to are the removal, it's not really a force, but a removal of parts of the structure that then changes the loading on the structure, hopefully to the point of failure. Those are some of the important definitions for you. Now, moving along, we get to team member and manager responsibilities. So here we highlight a process, a repetitive process that you will go through many times over the next months. Begin with reading the rules of the road. The rules of the road are part of the registration package, and they cover in general the entire program. Okay, there are some specifications listed down there for what is costed, what's not to be costed, types of materials that you could use, for instance, that aren't costed might include certain electronic equipment. They provide information on eligibility for team members, ages, breakdowns for different divisions, things like that. So read the rules of the road and understand them. Now, these initially for younger teams are team manager responsibilities, but over time, excuse me, team members can take on responsibilities for that as well. I'm still here. Then you need to read the challenge. Now the challenge is specific to structure challenge. That's the lose to win materials, and those give you more specific information about our specific challenge and material requirements, how the testing goes, information about the story to be told, and as importantly, as we'll repeat a little bit later, gives the team insights as to what can be done and what can't be done. And oftentimes when teams read the challenge requirements, they look at it as all of the you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, remember that one of the key axioms in destination imagination is if it doesn't say you can't, you can. So they need to look at some of those requirements and rules from both sides. Not only does it tell you what you can't do, but more importantly, sometimes, what does that allow you to do? Look between the lines. Look at other types of solutions. And so that's why we say, read the challenge, understand the challenge, question the challenge, go back and read it again, read the rules of the road again, and repeat that process. We like to say here that by the time we get to global finals, each of us probably will have read the challenge somewhere between 150 and 200 times, and maybe even more than that in the case of some of the International Challenge Masters. So that is kind of the touchstone. But use it as a resource, but look at it from several different directions. Okay, and at the end of these processes, as you're going through it, your team has a unique question, something about their solution, something that they don't understand. You and the teams may request written clarifications through the IDODI website, and that clarification comes to the International Challenge Masters, and they will get you an answer. Now that question and that answer, that dialogue back and forth, is just between you and your team and the International Challenge Master. So again, that's one way of trying to preserve the integrity of certain information or unique challenge or insights that may be out there. The one thing we would note, though, is that the request for clarification deadline is February 15th. So you have about a month left, okay? All right, now, going to the central challenge, as we mentioned before, design, build a structure using only wood, glue, playing cards, and/or adhesive tapes. Test the structure by placing it on the structure tester, placing the pressure board on it, and then removing parts of the structure. All easy so far, right? Yeah. Okay, and then the structure-based scoring will be based on two ratios. Now that's how much of the lightest initial weight of the structure compared to all of the other structures in the competition, and then the total weight removed compared to the initial weight. So this year, we've again tweaked the challenge a little bit in that the scoring for the structure is combined or comprised of two different ratios. And later on, we will have an example for you showing you how that works, that neither the lightest nor the one with the most weight removed necessarily would get the best score. All right? Then, the second part of the challenge then would be to create a story about how something, someone, or someplace is transformed from its beginning appearance to a noticeably different one. Now, as we've been going through training with live training, we realized that maybe we should have highlighted here the word appearance as well. So it has to be a visible transformation from the beginning to the end, whether it be the prop or set piece in the story, but it needs to be a change in appearance. And that will involve a prop or a set piece that is transformed after a part or parts are removed during the presentation. So that transformation that will occur in a set or prop piece kind of parallels or mimics the transformation that's occurring on the tester base with the structure. So a part is removed and something will visibly change during the presentation. Now, the structure. Couple of specifications to be aware of. For all weights, all divisions, a structure would weigh 75 grams or less. So that's as tested, 75 grams or less. There's no minimum weight. Well, there is a minimum. It has to be more than 0 to be able to hold the structure, but no more than 75 grams. The height would be at least 12 inches and no more than 15 inches. Now that's at the time when it's checked in at the beginning of testing. So at least 12 and no more than 15 inches. The height will be checked twice during the check-in. Usually structures are checked once with respect to height. This time it will be checked twice. And so what happens is the team will come to the check-in desk. It will be checked once with respect to its height. Again, at least 12, no more than 15. Then the team will be requested to pick the structure up invert it 180 degrees and put it back down, and again, it must be the 12 to 15 inch height when it's inverted. Okay, so it has to measure that or meet that specification in both cases. And the structure must be able to stand on the check-in table tester base without team members holding it. So when they check the height, if you envision some structure configuration that you think meets the rest of them but cannot stand upright without being held, it would not pass the structure check-in test, and teams would be given an opportunity to try to rectify it and meet that specification before proceeding. Okay, and then it must fit on the structure tester and have an opening its entire length that accepts a circular column with a 2-inch outside diameter. Again, we're going to have some pictures later on the video camera showing you this information and how all the structure compliance criteria would be checked and assessed by our appraisers. Okay, when the structure is checked in and when it is placed for testing, it must be a single unit, and multiple freestanding pieces are not allowed. So in other words, you couldn't have 3 columns that are not connected placed on the tester board, each of which is between 12 and 15 inches high, but they're not connected. That would not be considered a single structure. So they all have to be placed as a single unit. Then they must fit over the tester base and around the safety pole. That, again, will be evident when we show you the pictures. The structure can only contact the top surface of the tester base, the bottom surface of the pressure board, and it may touch the safety pole. I'm wondering, Jim, would now be a good time maybe to flip on the camera and show the tester base
We can
and
do that.
safety pole?
Okay. Steve, are you going to demo or shall
I'm up next.
Okay.
I? Okay.
Jim's going to tell you about it. I'm going to be man of white. Hang on.
And Ron's so good at that too. All right, so we're gonna move over and pick up Ron here and see.
The camera.
That's right. Relax.
Oh, it's you.
That's me. And that's the place where we want to look.
Okay.
You have to move kind of slow, Ron, because we're a little choppy.
I'm just going to lift up and show what the whole structure looks like.
That's the
Tester
structure
base.
tester base. And Ron's picking that thing up. They're pretty massive, actually. The top board of that thing weighs a good 10 pounds, and the bottom of it weighs about 15. And the things coming up the side there, the safety pole, the safety corners there are a couple of pounds. So it's a pretty herky piece of thing here. And you can see that pressure board, or crusher board as we tend to call it, has a 2-inch diameter hole in it. Now, this is the prime reason that we necessitate that the structure has to be able to accept a 2-inch diameter cylinder to go through it. Because if the structure fit up through the hole, the board's going to come down over it and is not going to be able to hold up any weight. So that's the important issue of that. Whenever the team sets this crusher board on top of the base, it can be in any rotated orientation they'd like to have. Doesn't have to be perfectly situated on there. But you can see this is the safety pole here. It's 1-inch diameter. Don't let your team build a structure that only accommodates 1-inch diameter, because we're going to have them make that work during the check-in process. Okay, when we're testing, when the team is testing the structure, they'll set the crusher board down over the pole. And we actually have a sample structure here, but we want you to understand that this is not what a structure would look like, but we made this out of a mailing tube. It's still got the UPS label on it, just to show you that. And it is, if we were making a structure, if the team were making a structure, it would be in the range of this tall. For those of you who've seen the structure challenge before, you'll recognize this is substantially taller, because when we put the crusher board on top of this thing, it will be considerably above the safety poles at the corners. So this is going to appear a lot different in this year's challenge than it ever has before. Take a look at the distance there between the safety poles and the underside of the crusher board. You can see that's a good what, 5-6 inches. So that structure, it's not exact, but it is between 12 and 15 inches. I think it's in the range of 14. And that was just for demonstration purposes. We don't plan to have one of these that we take to the tournament or anything like that. Just we don't want to give teams who are watching any kind of indication as to what we think a structure might look like. So this is not a legal structure. So is that all you want to show at this point, Ron? I think okay. Then what we're going to do then is we'll get Steve engaged here in just a minute. And after he gets situated down here, we're going to show his mugshot on here as well, so he doesn't feel left out.
Scary thought.
That's a scary thought. You got it.
What's coming through?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Steve Taylor. I'm one of the co-affiliate challenge masters. Now you get to see what I look like. Thank God I don't do this for a living.
You've got a good face for radio, Steve.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you can run your slides either up and down or right and left. There.
Thanks for the vote of confidence. Okay. Again, the structure specifications to kind of wind up what Ron was doing and talking about must be from approved materials. Again, playing cards, wood, glue, or tape, and its height has to be at least 12 inches and no more than 15. So this gives you a kind of an indication of what we were showing over there before. Okay, this materials list. So to start with the first one, is any type of natural wood. This can be pine, balsa, bass, mahogany, whatever material you choose as far as wood, as long as it's the natural substance found under the bark of any type of tree. Again, bamboo and grasses are not wood. Bamboo is a grass, and cork is actually the bark of a tree, so cork is not allowed either. Glue. Again, any commercially available adhesive material applied in a liquid form that creates a permanent bond. So these include epoxies, Gorilla Glue, Super Glue, Hot Glue, Elmer's Glue, and any glues that use an accelerant. What you don't want is the custom glues or custom adhesives from your local aerospace company to use. Playing cards. Again, any type of pre-printed playing card, commercially available, sold in decks, used to play a card game. Again, index cards, homemade cards from poster board or boxes and the like are not considered playing cards. Adhesive tape, again, a very broad definition here as well. Any commercially available variety of a material, such as paper, coated with a sticky adhesive used for connecting other materials together without the use of heat, water, or any type of accelerant. So let your imaginations run wild with this. Again, on your structure specifications, teams can use more than one type of wood, more than one type of glue. Multiple playing cards or adhesive tapes. Teams can make their own laminates. The definition of a laminate is two pieces of a substance held together with an adhesive. Again, plywood is an example of a laminate, but it's commercially available and commercially made, so it's not permitted. However, if the team decides to make their own version of plywood, that's more than acceptable. Again, structures cannot be soaked in anything other than water. So if the team wants to bend a piece of wood to a specific shape or purpose, they can soak it in water to bend it, but again, it has to be dry on tournament day, and they can use only water, no other substances. Some sources of materials. Again, we're in the Denver area, so these are some localized areas here, and some of the online areas, you know, National Balsa, SIG MFG, SIG Manufacturing, Specialized Balsa, and then for those of you that live in areas where you have casinos, oftentimes the casinos will make playing cards available at free or very reduced costs. Adhesive tape. Now here's some examples of adhesive tape. Now this is not all inclusive, but as you can see, there's, you know, frog tape, various masking tapes, Scotch tape, aluminum foil tape, painter's tape. So these are some examples of adhesive tape. Playing cards. Any type of playing card that's sold as a deck. So if you have an old deck of old made cards that you don't want to use anymore, or you know, your poker deck is getting a little old, that all works. Again, here's some examples of glues and adhesives. Anything that's applied in a liquid form. So you've got rubber cement, instant glues, spray adhesives, Elmer's glue, liquid nails. What's not permitted are the expanding foams, such as Good Stuff and these. These are not sold and marketed as adhesives. They're sold as insulation products. So that's why they're not permitted as adhesives. So now to designing and building your structure. Again, teams are highly encouraged to build and test many structures. The more they build, the more they learn, and they learn what works and what doesn't work. As far as testing the structures, it is best if you can get access to an actual tester base, but if not, you can have a relative, a friend, you know, grandpa, aunts and uncles and stuff like this, build a tester base for you. We have some other information later on how to access a document that tells you how to build a tester base, but having someone else build a tester base is not considered outside assistance, and it certainly does not go against your cost of materials. So again, the teams cannot use any type of technology that actually, where you input parameters and then it designs, creates, and or aids in the testing of that structure. The kids have to do all of the research and design and building on their own, and it's best to learn by trial and error in this case. Team members must do all of the tooling and or shaping of the structure. So if they want a piece of the structure that's 12 inches long and they have a piece that's 4 feet long, the team has to do all of the cutting, all of the shaping, and all of the tooling. Jigs, you can use jigs. They're just a device to maintain consistency and so that you can do things the same way time after time. If the team decides to use a jig, the team has to they have to make their own. And if you look at the challenge has a definition of what a jig is. Now we talk about the removal device. The team has to create and build its own removal device using its choice of materials. It does not have to be the same materials that they make their structure out of. It can be out of any materials available. It's the part that enables the teams to selectively remove parts of the structure during the presentation time. A team can only have one removal device. It doesn't say that the removal device cannot have multiple functions, but you can only have one removal device. And then the team chooses how to operate that device. It can be, automated. It can be manual. It doesn't matter. They choose how they're going to operate it. Again, and then there's the last part of it. There's no limit to how much of the structure can be removed in any single removal attempt. It's whatever the team chooses. It can be as much or as little as the team chooses to do. That pretty much wraps up my section for a little while. Right now, I believe Ron's going to talk about, or Jim, one or the other, is going to talk about the part removal process.
Well, this is the part of the challenge that has some similarity to adding structure weight or adding weights to the structure as we've done in previous years. And what the team's going to do is they're going to place the structure on the base, and they can begin their part removal anytime they want during the 8-minute presentation time. It always drives appraisers crazy when teams wait till the last 30 seconds to start doing any of these things with the structure, but in this case, you know that it's a team decision. Make sure that your team understands that this removal process and the testing of the structure must occur within the 8-minute time frame. This is the same time frame that they're going to have when they are doing the skit and the side trips and everything else that they're getting points for. So I want to make sure that the teams understand that. We find teams that show up that are ill-prepared to make this happen all at the same time. After the pressure board is put on top of the structure, it's there and cannot be removed or replaced to a different position. Once all the hands are removed from the tester base, then the appraiser starts that 4-second count. This year we'll have that, and I'll show you in just a few minutes, a little standoff zone of 6 inches around the tester base so that we're sure that the kids aren't going to be in harm's way if the structure does collapse. Because if, as you've noticed, with the crusher board being so high, if the crusher board falls down, it's going to make a bang, and we want to make sure that nobody's got any body parts close to it. So to that end, what we want to make sure is that the team member that is removing parts will begin that, and then there's a 4-second count after each part or parts that are removed. So the team needs to be careful and read how the parts are taken off and read how the 4-second count is completed. And then those parts that are successfully removed from the structure and the structure stands for an additional 4 seconds, those parts would be put into the provided discard container. And the points will amass there as we check to see what percentage of the structure was actually removed. So there's going to be a safety line around the tester with the outside of the line 6 inches from the tester base. All team members remain entirely inside that safety line after the pressure board is placed. So they can have their feet inside that 6-inch zone as they're placing the pressure board on top of the structure. But once that's done, then we can't be having any body parts, fingers, toes, or ears projecting past that 6-inch line on the outside of the tester base. There are no safety shields, so then every team member that's engaged in the testing part removal part of this is going to be needing to wear protective eyewear. Make sure that your team brings their own eyewear. We traditionally do not carry them in stock, and if your team forgets them, that becomes a time when you start developing your young sales force to go out there and persuade some other team to loan them one, but I shouldn't have said that probably. So regular eyeglasses, sunglasses just don't qualify as protective eyewear. The trick about protective eyewear is that side panel that protects the sides of the eyes from flying objects. And that's really the big deal that we're looking for there. Chemistry goggles obviously can be used in addition to cutting onions in your kitchen to taking to DI. So just take them off your wall if you've got them hanging there in the kitchen and take them along. Teams can remove as many parts at one time as they wish. Leave it at that. They can make a number of attempts to remove, or they can make a single attempt to remove. It's the team choice of how they want to do this. And they are not required, as they take the parts off, to immediately take them outside of the safety line. but if they are going to get them into the discard container in time to be scored, they'll want to be sure to do that as quickly as they can. So they cannot put the removed parts into the removed parts container until the structure holds for a 4 count after the removal of the part. Successfully remove parts into the removed parts container for weighing after presentation time, and then that will be compared to the original weight of the structure. So once the 4-second count's completed, remove parts that have been moved across the safety line to be handled by team members' hands. As long as their hands do not cross that plane that's 6 inches outside of the tester, they're fine. Structure parts dropped inside the line can only be retrieved using the removal device. If you look carefully in the challenge, you'll also find that even those parts that might be partly outside of the line and partly inside of the line must also be taken across the line by the removal device. So any parts on the ground when the time ends won't count towards scoring. They have to be in the RPC at the end of time or at the end of the challenge so that they can be scored. How far do I go here?
37.
30, no, I go to 29. Okay. All right, next slide. So if the removal device completely crosses outside the safety line, it's considered a removal attempt, and 4 seconds must pass before another attempt is made. So the team can't just willy-nilly be putting the retrieval device across the line and bringing it out and putting it back in. A 4-second time must pass before another attempt is made. Parts successfully removed into the RPC, that's the removed parts container for weighing. And the team will want to get they'll want to get all those parts in there instead of having them laying around on the floor in order to get the maximum amount of points for this. And parts removed are going to be weighed using a calibrated scale, just as we did when we weighed them in. It will probably not be the same scale, but it will be calibrated so that it too is an accurate weight. The weight removed ratio is going to be the total weight removed divided by the initial weight of the structure in grams. So we'll get a little bit more to that later on. So to qualify for the scoring, the structure must meet physical specs, and if not brought into compliance, the scores for initial structure weight and weight removed ratios will both be 0. In the case that this happens, and this happens, I would call it at least occasionally, we make a deal with the team, the appraisers do, that nobody's going to know. They've got their skit, they've got their performance. We're going to let them compete. We're going to let them do what they can and present their solution. And if their ratios are 0, that's going to make it tough for them to get a high score. But it depends how many other teams are there and what the other relative placements are. So the team needs to be enthusiastically presenting its other parts of the solution in order to get their scores. And the structure must support that pressure board for the initial 4 seconds for there to be any further scoring happening. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about the presentation itself. And who do we have doing that? That's Ron.
Okay, Mr. Ron again. We've had a lot of focus so far on the structure because that is one of the central themes of our central element of our challenge here, lose to win. But as we pointed out before, the team also has to prepare a presentation. We sometimes refer to it as a skit. But the presentation allows other team members to bring in their imagination, some of their skills, some of their interest, to create an original story that's going to describe another transformation. That transformation can involve an item, a person, or a place. And will be transformed from its beginning appearance to one that's noticeably different later. Now, the story can be real or imaginary, set in any time period, any location. There are no restrictions on characters. So again, these could be characters that from a storyline that they know that they somehow create a different story about. The characters can be of their own creation. But what we are looking for there is for the team to present and engage in effective storytelling. That means a beginning, a middle, an end, easy to follow what is happening through the course of their presentation of their story. Now, during that story, or included in that story, will be a prop or a set piece that has to be transformed. So definitions, always critical here in destination imagination. A prop is a portable object other than a costume. So when you're thinking of maybe a mechanical device, an ancient astronomer that they're using, can't remember what they're called now, to sight the sun or whatever, and it transforms into something else. That would be a prop, handheld, not necessarily handheld, portable, but not a costume. Okay. Now a set piece would be a larger piece of stage scenery built to stand by itself. This could be backdrops, other parts of scenery that will then be transformed. Now, a team may choose to have multiple props or set piece. But what's important here is that for the scoring, they be able to uniquely identify a specific prop or a specific set piece for the appraisers to watch for that transformation. And in the completion of their paperwork for the appraisers, they will describe what transformation is to be achieved and what we're looking for. So again, they can have multiples of either a prop or a set piece. Many teams would choose to do so, but there is only one that would be identified for scoring that would then undergo the transformation. Okay? And the transformation occurs after the team removes a part or parts from the prop or a set piece during the presentation. Now go back, I would say here is another area where you go back and read the challenge very carefully about the transformation of the prop or the set piece that has to occur. Another important part of the presentation are team choice elements. Teams are allowed to come up with two team-defined, we're calling them creations for team choice elements. Okay? And these could be interests, talents, skills, some other prop or set piece, but it is not an item that is specifically scored anywhere else in the central challenge. Okay? Both team choice elements must occur, must be presented, must be visible within the presentation area during their 8-minute presentation time. And I'm not so sure that this isn't the first time we've actually mentioned the 8-minute presentation time. From the time a team is given the go-ahead by the timekeeper, they have 8 minutes to complete the structure testing and their presentation. Now there's time involved in the check-in for their structure, meeting with the prep area appraiser, all of which we're going to discuss a little bit later. That occurs outside the 8-minute presentation, but they have an 8-minute presentation time to complete the presentation of their story, structure testing, and presentation of both team choice elements. Now, for the highest scoring, the team choice elements should have a meaningful connection to the central challenge solution. So if they're looking at a talent or some area of presentation or skill, it's best if it's integrated into and carries along with the storyline. In other words, we don't want Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles over here performing while we have something else going over here, say with regarding a swim meet or something like that. I mean, and that has to do with their storyline, with their structure testing. Try for integration throughout between the testing, the team choice elements, and their storyline. As I mentioned, The team choice element cannot be an item that's already scored in the central challenge. Okay? Now, it may be a part of another required element, but the team must be able to describe it. The appraisers must be able to evaluate it in a standalone context. In other words, it can't contribute directly to the function or presentation or appearance of the other item. It needs to be a distinguishable element. Okay? And then the points for the team choice elements are, we're going to be looking at creativity and originality, quality, workmanship, and effort. Okay? There's a lot of emphasis on the workmanship and effort element that contributes to quality for team choice elements. And then, as I mentioned a couple times, integration. Integration meaning a meaningful connection into the presentation. In a little bit while, Jim will be going over the scoring, where you get the points, and you will see the word integration and points awarded for integration 3 or 4 times under that scoring matrix. We're really looking for a cohesive, well-organized, well-presented solution. Okay? Teams may create anything they want to for team choice elements. Here are a couple examples. Technical gadgets, special effects, physical actions, music. You know, in the music, if we're talking about, if you're from an appraiser's perspective, there's the performance of the music, but you could even go beyond that to talk in terms of perhaps creation of the instrument, writing of the music. Is it an instrumental along with also words and a composition? So the more you can expand on it, the more likely a team is to score well on team choice elements. So we're giving some very brief teasers here, some keywords, but these are just to allow the team to start to explore where they would want to take the team choice elements. We're now going to switch over to clarifications, the next major subject area, and here's Steve.
I was holding that one in. One more pack on the go.
Hello, I'm back again. This is Steve. We have 4 general clarifications. Don't worry. I did that. I did that right there. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Okay, the first one was done by Destination Imagination itself, and it's an enhancement to Procedure 4 on page 248 of the Rules of the Road. It involves the instant challenge procedure. It expands and enhances the statement, primarily adding the last sentence that says, once the instant challenge begins, any participating team member may ask how much time remains in that part of the challenge. So it's just a clarification of that particular one. Clarification number 2, again, was done by Destination Imagination itself, and it basically clarifies that university teams may have one of their team members who is 18 years or older act as their team manager. For most other teams, this does not necessarily apply, but for university teams, that's what this is written for. Clarification number 3 is one that is specific to Lose to Win. Basically, it says, you know, that, once the structure is checked in, that you cannot add anything or any materials to the structure at any time. So once the structure is checked in, that's the way it is. You can't add anything, you can't alter it, you can't change it at any time. Clarification number 4, this is a clarification to the prop or set piece that basically says that the only way that the proper set piece is transformed is by taking parts away. You cannot add anything back to it once the parts are removed. So that just about wraps up, actually it does, wrap up all of the clarifications for now. And I believe Jim is going to talk to you about site presentation information.
Hello all, we're back again. When we have a tournament, we try to make this thing run as smoothly as possible. And we try to take that to the level of our performance areas as well. The presentation area that we're going to have available for your team is going to be 16 feet square minimum. And you can probably see that the indoors here on the left side, and we've got the prep area, has a logical flow. The team goes on to stage and then exits out the outdoor on the right side. Now, the weigh-in area you can see at the top left is it's an area where the team is going to take their structure first. It's going to be about an hour before their full presentation time. And the team will weigh in or check in their structure at this location. When they check their structure in and we find that it's all in compliance and all of that, we'll hang on to that structure until minutes before their presentation time. That way, there's no question that the structure has not been altered away from the eyes of the appraisers, and that and it's all fair and square. We've never had any trouble with this, but it's just a very prudent way of taking care of the structure. You can see the appraiser's table up here at the right side too. Now, not all sites will be set up like this. I want you to be aware of that. But the appraisers are not going to be sitting at the table and watching the presentation. We find that it's best, and we get the teams the most opportunity to get their scores and to get as much score as possible if the appraisers move to where the action is. Now, with a 16 by 16 area, it's not real large, but you'll find that the appraisers are going to go there. Some timid teams barely get their things across the launch pad, so the appraisers are moving over there to look at them where they're presenting. And the tester base isn't necessarily guaranteed to be at the lower left corner there either. It could be anywhere. And often we try to put that sort of in the center, maybe not exactly in the center, but we like to have a good view so that the audience can see what's going on with the testing as well as they can see the presentation. Grandma doesn't want to go there to be blocked out from seeing what's going on. But recognize that where that tester base is located can't be moved, and we want to make sure that every team has the opportunity to perform at the same site. You will do well to prepare your teams to have that tester base set in different locations so that they figure out how to make their presentation work around the location of the tester base. This year we don't have a lot of weights or anything like that to be moved around, but we do have that removed parts container, and we have a discard container that'll be close to the tester base. You can see that scale that's up there close to the appraiser's table. That would be the scale that we would use to weigh the amount of parts that are removed from the structure during its testing. So it may not look exactly like this, but this is the idea, that we have these things available. By the way, we do provide a 3-prong outlet and power to one corner of the presentation area. It may not be that corner that you see there with the blue dot. It could be somewhere else. There's no guarantee that there will be enough extension cord to reach any particular place on the performance area. So if the team needs to have an extension cord for their powered devices, make sure they bring that with them. As I said before, the 16 by 16 area could be marked off. Sometimes it's not. And they can use any part of the presentation area they want. It's the team's choice. May not move the tester base. So we've been through all of this. Tester base, we've seen one in real life over here. And you can see that, that the safety support, safety pole, pressure board, and tester base are all exactly the same as we've used for the past 20-some years in this structure challenge. All looks the same, and there are ways that we can give you advice on how to build one of those. I'll talk to you about that in just a second. And here is the safety line that we referred to one time before. That safety line is 6 inches of clear space between where we want the team members to be and the structure and tester base. So, by the way, we show a roll of paper towels here. That's really not part of the tester, and it's not going to be at the site. It was only an illustration, much like our mailing tube was a little bit earlier that you saw in the video here. You can see maybe that on the right side there, you might see that could be a removed parts container right there, that little Tupperware looking thing. That might be a removed parts container, but it's and the team can move that thing around. It does not have to stay where we position it. The team has the flexibility to move that, but they just can't move the tester base. How to build a tester base? And you know, teams don't have to build this tester base. You can get grandparents and friends and neighbors and everybody else involved to do that. Here is the location of where you can get the instructions of how to build a tester base. Since this presentation will be on YouTube, I'm going to give you a minute now if you care to write this thing down, but I hate writing down these URLs. They're hard to get right, and which way do the backslashes go, or the front slashes and everything else. But hopefully you have enough time to write that thing down. What do you call it?
Front slashes.
Forward slashes. Yeah, forward slashes, sure. Anyway, that's the place where you can go to find that. And if you go to dicolorado.org, you may be able to locate it there by going through some navigation. This will also be showing up on the YouTube video whenever we place this recording up on YouTube. Structure check-in about an hour before performance time. Sometimes we let the teams check in a little bit early, but I can tell you if your team advances on the globals, there's not going to be an early check-in. And the reason that we do that is we want all teams to have an equal opportunity to bring their structures into compliance. If we allowed a team an hour and a half to bring their structure into compliance, whereas another team checked in 1 hour before, there would be some favoritism shown there, and we don't want to be any part of that. So we make sure that the teams are prepared and check in at the right times. So we give the teams an opportunity as much as possible to bring it into compliance. If the thing is out of compliance, subject to the tournament schedule, we've allowed teams to do some pretty crazy things to bring them into compliance, and we've done whatever we can to give the kids every opportunity possible to be successful at what they're doing. And as I told you before, if they can't make the team, or they can't make the structure come into conformance, then the weight-held ratio will be 0, but we're not going to make a big announcement about that. The team needs to perform, and we're going to be proud of what they do no matter what. And the testing, all during the 8-minute performance time, talked about that before. Parts removal ends when the team decides to stop parts removal. That's one of the possibilities. The pressure board collapses or touches any of the 4 support posts at the corner of the tester, or the 8-minute time limit expires. So that's about the 3 scenarios that would stop parts removal. They may use that entire time. And sometimes we find that teams will complete their story or their presentation. They'll finish that up and they'll look puzzled, like, well, can we go on testing our structure? Of course they can. They've got the entire 8 minutes. Sometimes the structure will collapse and the teams look puzzled. Can we finish our story? Yes, you can. And what we want them to do is to give every possibility for getting those points that we can give them. It's an important thing to them. And let's talk about getting the points. Among the ways the teams can get points in this challenge, for each competitive level, meaning elementary school, middle school, high school, secondary, university, the team with the lightest initial weight structure will receive 50 points. Okay, that sounds great. There's 50 points if you can build the lightest structure. So then other teams whose structures weigh more will get a ratioed score that will be based on the lightest structure. For example, and don't take any of these numbers to heart, For example, if we had a structure that weighed 25 grams and it happened to be the lightest structure of the day, and another team came in with a 50-gram structure, the second team with the heavier structure would get half the number of points. I'll show you that in just a few minutes. Okay? And but to earn any of those points, the structure must support that pressure board for 4 seconds. And that's an important part of this. If the structure can't support that pressure board for 4 seconds, we're going to move to the next team that has the next lightest structure for ratioing all of the rest. The next way the team can get points here is they can receive up to 90 points for the highest weight removed ratio. You got that 90 points here. It was 50 points for the lightest structure, but 90 points if they have the highest weight removed ratio. So all other teams that have removed weight from their structures will be ratioed to this. This team's score then will be the team's weight removed ratio divided by the highest weight removed ratio. So a team that removes half the amount of weight ratio as a given team is going to score half the number of points that that team has. Again, the structure must support that pressure board for 4 seconds to have this count for them. Here's an example. I want to caution you and note that we just threw some numbers in here. We know that the maximum weight allowable is 75 grams. There's no minimum weight, so I mean a structure can weigh as little as the team chooses to. But you can see in this example here, we've organized the structures by weights ranging from the highest weight on the top to the lowest weight on the bottom, and you can see that that structure that weighs 24 grams is the lightest structure of the bunch. And this might be the middle level team, for example. And we're not going to compare them to the elementaries, nor are we going to compare them to the secondary teams. This team is the lightest of the middle school, and they get the full 50 points because they are the lightest one. You can see that the structure that weighs twice as much as the 24-gram structure weighs 48 up there on line C, and they get half that number of points, as I pointed out earlier. So they're going to get 25 points for that. Now we're going to come over to the structure weight removed region here, and we're going to take a look at the structure that had the highest weight removed ratio. You can see that line C, that started out with that 48-gram structure, removed 36 grams of their structure, which means they removed 75% of the weight of their structure. If you look up and down the column there, you'll see that no other team had a higher weight removed ratio than 75%, and so line C will gain the 90 points there for the scaled weight removed points, and other teams are in ratio behind that. But look, neither of those teams with either the lightest initial structure nor the structure weight removed were the teams that walked away with the highest score. That's line F. Those guys didn't have the lightest structure, they didn't have the highest weight removed ratio, but they did a good job of balancing those two requirements and got a higher score than any of the other teams. Close behind them, however, was line C with 115 points instead of 120. But you can see that the team needs to give appropriate attention to how many points they would get for weight removed ratio compared to how much they get for lightest initial structure. It's not very likely that the same team is going to get the same, or is going to max both of those numbers. Not very likely. So that's something to study and something for your teams to think about. And I would point out to them that they get nearly twice as many points for working with the weight removed ratio as they do for the lightest initial structure. Central story, central challenge story. Scoring is based on creativity of the story, and the dramatic effect of the prop or set piece transformation. Remember, that transformation has to do with a subtractive process. It's taking something away and changing the prop or set piece. And then the creative integration of the structure part removal with the story. We find that if we can get, if we think we're getting the same, or we're getting a similar or integrated removal, structure part removal with the story, we're going to have far more points for that. And it's all got to do with imagination and creativity. All right, so here's how the points would stack up. The removal device is up to 40 points. The creativity of the removal device up to 20, and the quality and workmanship of the removal device up to 20. We point out to appraisers in no uncertain terms that these are two independent pieces of appraising. Creativity and quality and workmanship could be about the same numbers, but often we see that one is higher than the other. We find that their quality and workmanship would be higher than the creativity, or vice versa. Now, we're looking to reward them for both. So obviously a very creative and high quality removal device is going to get more points than just a stick. And, you know, a stick could be used in some way or another. Not very creative, and not very much high quality or workmanship, but you know what, it could get the job done depending on how they do it. All right, the story and prop set transformation up to 60 points. Here we go again. Look, creativity of the story, dramatic effect of the prop / set. And in fact, you see that dramatic effect has higher points available than the creativity of the story or the integration of the story part or the part removal with the story. So make your team aware of that. These things all get points. You'll see how they all add up in a few minutes. Then we have team choice elements. We talked about team choice elements earlier. Again, creativity, originality, quality workmanship, two different things, and then integration into the story. And you can see that 1/3 of the score that they're going to get on team choice element number 1 is integration of that team choice element into the story. Same thing for team choice element number 2. And those are each up to 30 points, totaling up to a total of 60 points. I'm going to show you how that fits in here in just a minute too. So here's what they get when they're on stage. The points break down. We've got 25% of the points that they get on stage are for the story and transformation. 21% of that score is going to be the lightest initial structure weight. Look at the weight removed ratio down here in the lower right. That's 37%. That's nearly twice the lightest initial structure weight. So 37% is going to be weight removed ratio. And the removal device itself, 17%, not to be sneezed at either. But you're thinking, uh-oh, what happened to those side trips that kids worked so hard on? They had two 30-point possibilities. Well, they show up, and this is the entire points for the entire day. Central challenge, that green pie segment there, 60% is the points they get on stage. And those points are all of these points on the previous slide, where you see the story, the removal device, and the two ratios. That's what they earned on stage, and that's the green part over here. That's 60%. So still a lot of points to fill in for the day. Team choice elements is 15%. So they don't get scored. Those team choice elements don't get scored with the rest of the on-stage production. They get scored. They get those scores added on to the entire. They get added on to their central challenge score. That's that part of the challenge that they did on stage. Instant challenge. Don't let your kids go home without it. You have 25% of the day's score is instant challenge. We have seen teams that might just totally ace the structure testing part of this challenge and fall flat on their face in instant challenge, and a team that could place as first place can easily get bumped down to 3rd, 4th, or 10th place because of instant challenge. There are teams out there, some teams are pretty hot on instant challenge. I want your team to be ready, and you need to make sure that you give the appropriate amount of time for each of these elements. If I were coaching a team, I would look at these numbers here: 60%, 15%, 25%, and maybe I would arrange the team's time appropriately for how they would or what kind of activities we would have at each of the practices. Now I'm going to have Ron explain to you some other important information about the challenge and to close up.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, we've been doing a pretty intense data dump here, information dump. We hope it's been helpful to help understand the challenge a little bit and to give you some information regarding and some pictures, drawings, things like that to help you understand what the materials are like, what the setup is like, what the structure test is like. We've pointed out a couple times, one thing that we strive to enforce throughout the presentation is that safety for the team members, our appraisers, team managers, and our guests in the audience is of paramount importance to us. So there are restrictions and rules of the road in terms of how to address chemicals, electrical devices, dry ice, helium. Not all are excluded, but there are definitions about what is allowable and what is not allowable. No weapons-looking props. Many schools increasingly have a no-tolerance policy. You know, if somebody wants to have a story set in ancient times involving combat between knights using weapons, you know, I don't know, maybe a cardboard tube from gift wrap paper gets by, but you know, nothing that's metal, wooden, sharp edges, things like that, please. Yeah, no weapons-looking props. Jim stressed before the importance of eye protection, in this case, wraparound eye protection, so that the eyes are fully covered for all team members that are involved in the structure testing. So it's not just someone involved in the weight removal, but if multiple team members are combining and coordinating on weight removable and placement into the removed parts container, all team members involved in structure testing need to have wraparound safety glasses. Now, that doesn't mean that if you've got 3 different students involved and one takes them off, and when they're going back to be part of the presentation and hands them to a co-team member, and that team member puts them on, that's okay. But when they're involved in the actual structure testing, all team members have to have eye protection. Closed-toed shoes for your team members who are handling the pressure board. As you may recall when we looked at it, there's some sharp edges on that wood, and it weighs 10+ pounds, and if it drops in your toes, it's going to hurt. So look for
Closed-toed, the toe shoes like that.
Oh, okay. Just was reminded that we need closed-toed shoes. So if one of your team members has these shoes that look kind of like gloves with the toes are covered, but they're not a closed toe, full front cover, that doesn't count as a closed-toed shoe. So again, be sure that they have closed-toed shoes. And then if you have any questions about something else that your team may be wanting to use, check with your regional director, your team challenge master. If there's something, the affiliate challenge master or your regional director. If there's something else about the site that everybody needs to know ahead of time, such as access for ramps, doors, things like that, that's information that should be shared with you by your regional director, tournament director, prior to tournament. But again, if there's any questions at all, check with your individual region or regional director. Okay, attention to details. The cost limit this year is $150. We've mentioned that before. Last year was $125. Years ago it was $100. So this cost limit is based on what some of the materials might be involved and all the different complexities involved in a challenge. So this year it's $150. And again, That's for materials, costs, equipment that is needs to be expensed on the day of the tournament for presentation at the tournament. What crosses the line is what, as we like to describe it. Okay? The structure scoring, as Jim went through in considerable detail, it's two parts this year: the initial structure weight and the weight removed. And the weight removed is disproportionately weighted to the initial structure weight. One had 50 points, one had 90 points. So the teams should take that into consideration. This year, only the pressure board is to be placed on the structure. There are no additional weights. So as a consequence, there are no adult assistants needed. So all the team managers, the team members' parents, grandparents, they all get to sit and watch and enjoy the presentation. Nobody will be asked to come out and help teams place weights. As far as information now for Colorado Regional Tournaments, all the dates are now set. So on March 7th, we have 2 regional tournaments, the Jeffco and North Region. March 14th is going to be a busy day. We have 4 tournaments: Boulder, South Metro, Southwest, and Western Slope. March 21st, we have 3. So we have Cherry Creek and Denver here in the metro area, and then south down in Pueblo. And then we have almost a month for all those teams that qualify to refine, rethink, rebuild, practice on an instant challenge, take to heart whatever their scores were from the regional tournament and say, what are we going to focus on in terms of getting our scores better, or in some cases even maintaining the scores is a good goal sometimes from regional to state tournament, because what we like to say is, don't rest on your laurels. You have a different set of appraisers, the competition is different, things like that. So look for ways to maintain and improve. But this year we have a full month between those two. In some years in the past, we've had 2 weeks between our regional tournament and the affiliate tournament, and that was a push for some of the late teams to be able to reorganize and move forward. But this is the tournament schedule. Here's our regional challenge masters. Again, I'll leave this up here. If somebody wants to oop, it's
Here.
there it comes. Okay. So Nora is working at the state level. Myself, I'm at state, Pikes Peak in South Metro. Steve Taylor is at the state ACM in Denver region. Jim is a busy guy at Jeffco, North Metro, and Boulder. There's something we can't get him down south for some reason. He always likes to stay up north. I don't know what that is. Somewhere on 6th Avenue tends to be a break line for him. Ed Stevens down south on Pueblo. Mark Adams in Cherry Creek. Joe and Jeffco helping Jim. Marcy helping and working with Jim in North Metro, or maybe that's the other way around. Jim helping Marcy in North Metro.
That's more like it, yeah.
Excuse me.
Actually, I'm playing Jim at North Metro.
Margaret at South Metro. Eric Stevens down Southwest, and Kerry Smith over in the Western Slope. You can contact these people. Again, this presentation should be posted on the Extreme Creativity website soon. If you are completing registrations, you should get information back from the registration process in terms of who your regional challenge master is, or once we get the complete list, we'll be sending out emails to contact you. But that's the organization of people that are here to help you. Please don't hesitate to contact any of the ACMs, the 3 highlighted here at the top, or your regional challenge master, and we'll do what we can to help you out. So I guess we haven't updated this one. This completes the webinar and team manager training, but we will be available from in the future on a one-on-one basis. If you need help, just give us a call. We are here to help. Early on, I did mention asking for a clarification. This is just a little summary slide showing you how you would do that. In the upper left-hand corner, step 1 is what the one of the pages on Destination Imagination looks like. When you click on clarifications, key managers, it will highlight the different resource areas, go over to step 2. You click on structural lose to win. You will see all the published clarifications, the 4 that Steve went through a little bit earlier, and then down on number 3 is where you would click to submit a request for a team-only clarification. Again, those requests for clarifications are open until the 15th of February. And there's always a race to see who gets done first, so I would hazard a guess that by the 16th of February, every clarification will be answered. All right. We've been monitoring questions along the way here, and I think we've done a pretty good job of integrating the responses back into our presentation. If there's something else out there, give us a chat request. We're going to keep the lines open for 3 or 4 more minutes, see how many we get, and then we'll sign off.
All that before 8 o'clock.
All that before 8 o'clock, right?
Mountain time, of course.
Can I shut this microphone off? Is that good for now?
You know, you can shut that off right here. Do this thing right here. Little slide thing right on that. You can slide that down towards here. Okay. All right. Well, then flip that on and wish everybody good night, and we'll shut down.
Okay, folks, we're not seeing any additional questions come in, so I guess that's a sign of a job reasonably well completed.
You can still hear you guys. It's still live.
And so anyway, we're just going to go ahead and shut down for now. If you have questions, go ahead and send us a question to one of the ACMs up there on the list. In the meantime, good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing your teams at tournament. Thanks a lot.